Hello, impromptu listeners. This is David Shipley, Washington Post opinions editor, and this weekend we're sharing with you the final installment of our Who is Government series, where 7 writers dove into the depths of the federal government and came out with remarkable stories of public service. In this episode, Michael Lewis, who curated the series for us, talks to W. Kamau Bell, the author, comedian, and producer, about what he found at the Department of Justice and the story he tells in words and images. Here it is.
I'm Michael Lewis, author of a bunch of books, Moneyball, The Blind Side, The Big Short, Going Infinite, and this is our series. It's called Who is Government? And I'm here, to my great pleasure, with Kamau Bell, new friend and Avenger, stand-up comedian, producer of documentary films, and a very singular voice. And the voice comes across in the piece.
Oh, that's great.
All right. Assignment is find something in the federal government to write about. Tell me what went through your head and what you considered before you landed where you landed.
I did like the idea of finding something obscure and something like out of the way. I think that's my best version of creativity, is when I just sort of follow my nose and don't overthink it and just sort of like end up where I end up. So I was excited about the idea of just like, I hope to find something that nobody's ever thought about before or whatever. So that,
well, you did.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Well, at some point I was like, wait a minute. Isn't Olivia my goddaughter working in the Antitrust division of the Department of Justice? And I was like, and I had this moment of like, is it going to be that easy? And I was like, it can't be that easy. And it all ended up being that easy as far as getting to the idea. But yeah, I just was like, we were in my house, which I write about in the piece. And I just sort of was like, so do you like working in the Department of Justice for Antitrust? And she was just like, yes. And I was like, all right, step 1 down. Like she's excited about it. Yeah.
It's funny because you probably wouldn't have thought very hard about her job.
No, I knew very little about her job until I sort of went down this road. And I think the other thing is that this is one of the great pleasures of this piece is we've never spent this much time just together, the two of us, before. It's always been around family. So this was like me really stepping into her life and having one-on-one time with her that I hadn't had before. So I've enjoyed all the trips out to DC to hang out with her.
Godfather can be a pretty loose connection.
It can be.
It's kind of a bullshit title.
It can be.
It's like senior editor.
Exactly.
You're senior to no one and you edit nothing.
It's like night manager of the 7-Eleven. Just keep it open. Just don't lock the door. You'll be fine.
And what you've done, it just inadvertently, but it's great. You filled a hole that I didn't realize we had, but we completely had, is because we were dealing for most of the series with people who had done kind of spectacular things over a 30 or 40 year period. They're all old people. I mean, we didn't have anybody just starting out in government. And this maybe the single biggest problem our government has is attracting talented young people to come work for it. And so that you happen to have a live one right under your nose was fantastic. You now engaged with her in a way you hadn't engaged with her before about this. Do you think she's genuinely thrilled with what she does and sees an important mission there?
I think this kid was like born to sort of like be a part of the solution. Whatever the problem is, she's born to be a part of the solution and has always been a part of the solution in more ways than I even was at her age. And people think I was that kid, but like she's really been deep in it. So I think that, yeah, she is definitely like excited about it, but she's also hit that age of 24 of like, I also have to figure out how to pay rent. You know what I mean? I also have to figure out if I'm going to go in $400,000 in debt to law school, how do I dig my way out of that? So that's the thing that I think I was surprised about, because I just thought she's excited and ready to take on the world, but she's also having the reality of your mid-20s when you're like, but how am I going to actually live this life that I want to have?
So what did you learn?
The thing that I learned, and I put this in the piece, is like, especially with antitrust, once you sort of like put that in your Google searches or whatever, you realize it's everywhere, that it's an issue that this country is dealing with all the time on multiple levels, from giant things like literally the bar down the street from my old apartment in San Francisco is the bar that is suing the NFL Sunday Ticket for letting them play games. They like won a $4.6 million case. Obviously it'll be appealed, but like this little dive bar that was like not even the popular bar in that neighborhood, like won this giant case. And it really connected me to like as a kid, remembering when the phone companies were broken up, about like, oh, that's why that happened.
Yeah.
And then the Lena Khan of it all, like there is somebody in there who, who a lot of the billionaire class hates, but the right and the left seem to think is doing a good job, which is a very rare thing in this country.
Well, one of the ways you become a member of the billionaire class is you evade antitrust concerns.
Yes, one of the ways you become a billionaire is by holding on to as much money as possible and making as much money as possible.
And it's just monopolistic power.
Yeah.
And this is the division that's designed to erode it. And so it's going to be constantly in fights with powerful people.
And I think
that's its job, is to be in fights with powerful people.
And I think we've sort of convinced people who aren't billionaires that the American dream is to invent something that only you have, that when you sell it, you can sell it for whatever price you want to. And that's actually winning, instead of going, well, no, that's actually unfair. If you've done something that nobody else can do, and are you punishing people for it financially? So I think that's the thing that I think a lot of people really think the goal is to invent the perfect widget that you can sell for, a super marked up price so you can be a billionaire, which is Olivia says, that infringes on other people's American dreams.
It was interesting to me that Olivia thought where she belonged was in the civil rights division.
Yeah.
But there's no place for her there. Instead, she just for practical reasons ends up in the antitrust division, and then finds that actually the injustice that concerns her might be best addressed here.
Yeah. She's a black kid from Oakland. Civil rights is like it's an adjective out here. It's a verb. It's a thing you hear about all the time. And so I think from the outside, you think, well, that's where I'm going to go, or that's where I should be. But then you realize there's a lot of justice happening in the Department of Justice. And that it's not just in the Civil Rights Division.
That should be their tagline. There's a lot of justice happening here.
And the way she pitched it to me when I first talked to her about it was like, I don't know what case she's working on. She's not allowed to tell me, but there was a case with tuna recently where they went after these big tuna suppliers, and she's like, look, if you can save somebody a few pennies on their tuna, that's a big deal over the course of their lifetime, that they don't have to pay for all that extra tuna money. So it's like, I think she really sees it as like, there's multiple ways to sort of make America live up to its promise. And this is one really good way.
So the listeners to this are going to have, unlike with the rest of the series, they're going to have two things to do. They can read your piece and they can watch the video. So who are your best supporting actors? In addition to Olivia, who's in the video?
So first of all, when we first put these pieces together, as you know, we talked to Max Steyer from the Partnership for Public Service. And Max, I just loved from the first moment I met him, and then realized at some point that he's the guy who actually started the paralegal program in Olivia's department. And so at some point he kept saying, and I was like, wait, I think Max wants to be in this video. And I don't know if he does want to, but I felt like he needed to be in the video because it helped.
He created the department she's in.
Yeah, he created the department. So I was like, I need to talk to you about this. And also, Max is just great. He's not going to be happy that I call him the Mr. Rogers of government, but I do it several times.
But you know what's wild about him having created that department is that when he started the partnership, his mission in life was to attract young people to government service.
Yeah.
And so he's done it through your goddaughter, through that program.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of other people who.
And then there's Kathy O'Neill, who I met through Max, who works at the Cooley Law Firm, who was also in the paralegal program years ago in the 90s. And she's like my 101. Here's what antitrust is. And Kathy's just great. Like, I love an excited nerd, because I feel like I come from those people. So Kathy is able to talk in a way that is fun and passionate about something that could be dry. And then it just so happened that, like, I am a fan of MMA. One of my favorite podcasts is the Morning Combat Podcast. Luke Thomas, the co-host of that podcast, lives in D.C. and talks on his podcast about the UFC and there being a monopoly. So I was like, I can also just talk to this guy, Luke, who I've been sort of friendly with over the internet for the last few years.
So Luke's in it.
Yeah, Luke's in it. Luke is great. And Luke is also, I love it because I like to make things that have, like, it's like a chef who's like, what's that flavor? I didn't expect that. Luke is the unexpected flavor because he's a tattooed ex-Marine who loves combat journalism but cares a lot about justice.
All right, last question. What do you want people to take away from the video and the piece?
That our government is a work in progress, and there are ways for all of us to participate more than just going to the ballot box once a year. This whole program, now that I know about it, it's a thing that I will talk to other people about, like, oh, what do your kids want to do? Oh, they want to be lawyers? Yeah, there might be a good spot for them over here. I think it's just a way to sort of figure out, I think we often think of, like, public service as, like, running for office, and I think running for office can be so complicated and also so, like, not exactly what you think it is, where the way I think of this, these are people who are actually every day go to work with the mission of, like, how do I make this country live up to its promise better? And they're doing real work.
So it's been totally fun getting to know you and totally fun having you as part of the series. And thanks for wrapping it up in such style.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's been great to be invited in, and This is the most exciting thing I have going on this year, so I'm really happy to be. I keep telling people I got this big thing coming out, so I'm really happy to be involved. And thanks for having me.
All right. See you down the road.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Impromptu. Please check out Kamau Bell's story in both its written and its video version. We'll include links to both and the entire Who is Government series in our show notes. This episode was produced by Hadley Robinson and mixed by Emma Munger. Let us know what you thought about this conversation or this series at impromptu@washpost.com. I'm David Shipley. Thanks a lot.